of examples and principles, and you were supposed to, or we're going to go through and discuss whether they are adaptive or non-adaptive. So what does adaptive mean? If a trait or if the selection is adaptive, what does that mean?
More suited to the environment.
Okay, yeah, so the result is it's matching to the environment, so it's allowing it to survive and reproduce with natural selection. All right, so non-adaptive then is random.
By chance.
Right, just by chance it has been selected, okay? So we'll talk about these other types of selection, sexual selection and random selection, and then we'll have a scavenger hunt, and that'll be your quiz. So however many things you can turn in, you'll get a certain amount of points per thing on the scavenger hunt. Okay? All right. All right, so we'll come back to this. I said this is in the video lecture. I said this is the first thing we'll do, but we'll come back to this because we're going to talk about some of these things on here, and then some of these things I'll have to explain because they weren't in the video lecture. And let's talk about whether these are adaptive or non-adaptive. Okay, so adaptive means what? What type of selection is occurring? Natural selection. You're matching with the environment. Non-adaptive would be random. Okay? So the founder effect, adaptive or non-adaptive? Non-adaptive. Good. All right. Stabilizing selection. That was one of our 3 types of natural selection, right? Genetic drift. Non-adaptive. So that was random, right? Natural selection. Adaptive. Artificial selection. Is it a little tricky? All right, it doesn't help them to their natural environment, so non-adaptive. But it's not random either, so it's kind of in the middle. All right, the scale-eating fish. Now, this wasn't on the video, but there's a type of fish that there's a parasite that will go, and its face it has a little sucker on it, so this is the fish. And its sucker will be either right-facing or left-facing. Okay? So when a fish swims by, okay, the genetic variation allows either the fish to swerve to the left or swerve to the right. Okay? And then these scale-eating fish are also going to be curved to the right or to the left. Okay? So if enough of the fish turn to the left, then these guys are selected against. Okay? Because they're suckers on the wrong side. Okay? And then these guys will increase in the environment. And so will the guys that turn left. Okay, but then it'll go the other way. If you have too many of these, then the fish that turn to the right are going to do better. And so it kind of goes back and forth, and they stabilize each other depending on what's in the environment.
Sounds adaptive to me.
What's that?
Sounds pretty adaptive.
Yes, adaptive, good. Okay, but it doesn't lead. What would really be adaptive is if the fish evolved to go either way, right? If they could turn both ways, but I guess they don't. Okay, the prairie chickens. So in prairie chickens, they have been, these are found in Midwestern United States into southwestern United States. And they've been mostly extirpated from where their native range is. So they've gone through a bottleneck effect, and they're trying to reintroduce them, but they don't have enough genetic variation. So is this adaptive or non-adaptive? Right. Okay, gene flow, another one. So when you have multiple populations that are somewhat isolated from each other, they'll start to evolve different traits. And then in gene flow, what you have is if individuals from the populations are able to cross into each other's populations, and that will increase the amount of diversity in the overall species, okay, and allow for more traits to be represented in each population. So would that allow those populations to be more adaptive to their environment, or would that be random? Adaptive, good. All right, frequency-dependent selection. That's really what I described with the fish, but then there was also the example with the water boatmen, the little bugs. So we already decided that was adaptive. All right, bottleneck effect. Sexual selection. Depends, right? Okay. What are the two different types and which one's adaptive and which one's not? So not intra and intra, but
Intersexual.
no. Runaway. Runaway and good genes. So if it's runaway, that it is adaptive or non-adaptive. Right? If it's good genes, then it's adaptive. Good. All right, the peppered moth example. Adaptive, right? That was directional selection. How about a peacock? So they have these huge tail feathers. It's an example of runaway selection, right? All right, and disruptive and directional are both adaptive because they're both natural selection. Okay, good. So you should be able to recognize, again, if it's going to match the traits with its environment, it will be natural selection, it will be adaptive. If not, non-adaptive. All right, and we already said, all right, so we've already talked about two types, right? Natural and artificial selection. And what were the three types of natural selection? Disruptive?
Non-disruptive.
Directional? It's stabilizing. Okay, good. You can recognize those by how they change compared to the means, right? All right, so then we're going to add to that sexual and random selection. All right, so sexual selection occurs when you have, well, there's two different types, right? Intrasexual and intersexual selection. Intrasexual selection means that it's decided within the sex who mates, okay? So generally, this is some sort of aggressive behavior in one sex, and the winning one gets to mate with the female, okay? So what are some examples of intersexual selection?
Like bucks fight.
Yeah, right. When bucks fight.
Elephant seals.
Okay, elephant seals. Good one. Yeah. Okay, we'll watch this. You tell me, what kind is it? Okay, so intersexual selection is the opposite, where one sex among many suitors then chooses. Okay, so it's mate choice is intersexual selection. Yeah.
Like songbirds.
Okay, like songbirds, yeah. All right, so we're going to watch this video and you tell me whether it's intra or intersexual selection. There are a couple different instances of, let's say you have a population of beetles. I'm not going to draw their legs. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blue ones, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 red ones. Okay, and this is just the natural variation in our population. If a hurricane comes along and kills all of these ones, we had a shift in the traits. And now we have 3 blue ones and 1 red ones. So the blue ones are now more represented than red. When our original population, the red were more represented. Okay, and that's just through random chance. This is especially going to happen in small populations. Okay, and this is called genetic drift. Okay, another example is if, let's go back. We had our original population, and there's an island over here. Okay, and just by chance, a couple of these beetles flew over to this island. And now our population is all blue, right? So it's different than the original traits, or different proportions. And so this is called the founder effect. Yes?
Is that kind of like what happened with Darwin's finches?
With Darwin's finches, a number of things happen, which we'll talk about when we talk about macroevolution and speciation. But in this instance, they're still the same species, just the genetic variability is different. Yeah. Okay. If we go back to that first example, where let's say there was also some green ones here. A hurricane came and knocked out all of these guys. And now our new population is different. Okay, this new population now, what's different about it? It doesn't have greens, right? So sometimes when you reduce the population, it goes through what's called a bottleneck effect. And even if you can get this population to as big as it used to be, you've lost genetic variation. Okay, and so this has occurred. This is a problem for species which have almost become extinct, and then we've tried to grow them back to their native ranges, but the genetic variation isn't there that used to be. So that doesn't allow for them to recover as well. Okay, so those are some examples of random selection.